Can't hear you. tried them all.
Yeah, this one's working.
Wait.
It's bouncing.
Oh, yes!
So,
Yes!
Jonathan Smith show is getting underway here on Indies Sports Ticket. We'll have Zack Gray joining us here in a moment. We got Peyton getting him on the line right now. That first hour flew by. Colts, I like him at 7-10, coming up at 120. If you want to dial the number 317-228-1430, you can call in, give me your prediction on what the Colts record is going to be this year. There are no bad answers unless you have them going like 0-17 or 17-0 or anything insane like that. Then I'll have to pass on that.
All right, great.
Oh, Zach, you're coming through over the air too. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you? All good, man. All good. You can hear us. That's all that matters. Joined now by Zack Gray, at ZG the Grapevine on X, professional sports gambler. Go check out the link in his bio. It'll allow you to see where he sells tools to help you make better bets. And Zach, I haven't done it yet, but it's my favorite time of the year, man. Talking about betting overs and unders. I can't wait. I know you're more of a game-to-game guy, but are you going to do any over-unders this year for your betting? Can I give you one that I did really like, but everyone else is on it. So now I'm like, I don't know if I want to take it anymore. I mean, dude, I don't know how much you looked into their schedule. 0-4 is definitely on the table. And honestly, I feel like it's more likely for the Colts to go like 1-16 with a late season win over the Bengals when Joe Burrow's not playing because he'll be hurt. It is. Well, I mean, let's just be honest. When you look at Daniel Jones's track history, he's probably not going to be playing in that game either. Oh, man. That getting the band back together, pulling good old Joe Flacco back here in Indy. I think the over-under for the Bears this year is at like 9.5. And I was so excited to bet the under. But everyone else likes the under. And now it makes me want to take the over. I don't know, man. What, So here's what I do every year, Zach, and it's boded really well for me. Like I went 3-0 2 years ago. 2 years ago when I did this, I went 2-1 last year. So turnovers in the NFL are luck. That's just what they are. Um, and so turnovers fluctuate from year to year. Obviously, turnovers have a large impact on the outcomes of games. The Bears were like third in the NFL last year in turnovers forced, and I think that swung some games in their favor because I don't think that their defense is very good. So while the offense I think is still going to be awesome, even though with them losing DJ Moore, I'm intrigued to kind of see how the offense shifts. I'm with you. I think Ben Johnson figures it out, but I think the defense is going to be significantly worse. I looked at their schedule last night. I'm pretty sure it's one of the tougher ones. That's kind of where I'm at. I think it's a tough schedule, and I think their defense regresses. Their over under is 9.5. So I feel like that's around the right number. If you're thinking like 10 or 11. joined, joined by Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine on X. He is a professional sports gambler. If you click the link in his X bio, it'll take you to his Patreon where he sells tools to help you make better bets. Can I tell you one that I am almost positive that I'm going to bet? I don't make the bet until after training camp because every year some important player tears their ACL. It's just something that happens, so I usually wait. But I think I'm going to take the Jets over 5.5 wins. They didn't have for the opposite reason of why I would take the Bears under. Like the Jets averaged 0.2 turnovers forced per game last year, and there's just no way statistically that they're going to be that bad again. I think Geno Smith is, even though he wasn't great last year, I do think Geno Smith's better than Justin Fields at this point. I think that's a pretty safe thing to say. And I think their defense forces a lot more turnovers, and they steal a couple of games. They're going to probably beat the Dolphins twice. Jets over 5.5 is another one that I really like. They didn't record one at all.
Yeah.
First team ever. Isn't that crazy? Well, I don't know if you've seen Sauce Gardner play corner. Pan hands. Can't catch anything. It's kind of amazing. But yeah, they didn't record one. Not one the whole year. Isn't that crazy? It's not going to happen again. It's incredible. That's why you do bet on them. No one else is going to bet it. And look, those buildings in Vegas are big and expensive for a reason. And I'm telling you, I've done this. This is going to be look, I've only done it for 2 years now. So I guess the sample size isn't big enough for me to be like, this is going to work. But it hasn't failed me so far. It's incredible. The Jets win a game. That's hilarious. They'll win one. I mean, come on now. Joined again by Zack Gray. They do. That's 2 wins right there. Joined again by Zack Gray talking about over under win totals. Yeah, man. So I really like those two. I'm thinking about Kansas City over 10.5. For the same reason, like they were 28th in the NFL in takeaways last year. They're going to be better at that this year. I like their draft. Um, so I don't know. I'm working through all of that right now. But when I was texting you last night, I was you were like, "What all are we going to talk about?" And you were the perfect person for this list. So yesterday on the show, I did nothing but lists. Every segment had a list. And I'm assuming you saw this. Jake Fisher had a report earlier in the week that LeBron's willing to play on a vet minimum contract, which basically makes him eligible to go anywhere. I think he should come to Indiana. And like that's probably a little bias because I live here, but they need one more guy. They need a guy who can kind of run the offense when Halliburton's on the bench. I know Andrew Nemhard can do it, but like I don't think it's controversial to say that LeBron James would do a better job at it than Andrew Nemhard would. What do you think about the idea of LeBron coming to Indy and playing on a 1 year, $3.5 million contract? He can win a title here. I think there's if I actually think the best place for him to go would be San Antonio, but I do think that Indy should be on the list. Like we know that he likes Halliburton, played with him on the Olympics, likes Halliburton enough to have him like guest co-host his podcast. So I think that counts for something. I think he would fit in really well here. I think especially older players, I think have a tremendous amount of respect for Rick Carlisle. We know that LeBron played for Coach Brown in New York earlier in his career. I don't remember if he liked Coach Brown or not. I don't know. LeBron's just had so many coaches fired. I can't keep them all in order, you know. Um, Go ahead. Sorry, it was right there. I had to say something about that. Come on now. That's probably what's going to happen. I just I have a hard time thinking he goes back to LA because he's a really smart guy. I don't think that LA team's good enough to win a title next year. They'd have to make a lot of adjustments. They'd have to go find a real center. They need some more wings. There's just a lot of rebuilding that still kind of has to happen. I think Cleveland makes a lot of sense. I think New York makes a lot of sense. Can I offer you Detroit? Because they clearly need a second guy. And he'd be able to slide in and do that. He wouldn't have to play every night. They won 60 games this year. I think Detroit should be an honorable mention in that as well. It's one season. It depends. Like, and won a title. That's the thing. I don't think he's sticking around for to play on a vet minimum contract if he's not at a place where he thinks he can legitimately win a title. That's my question about LA. I don't know if he really thinks that they're good enough to win the finals. Yeah. Cleveland or New York. Yeah. 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 It's a fair thing. He's larger than the market, which I couldn't imagine living in a place where you're bigger than the market. So that's a very fair critique. That's true. Yeah, it is. And I hope it's here. It's wishful thinking, but again, joined by Zack Gray. Follow him on X at ZG the Grapevine. Check out the link in his bio. It'll take you to his Patreon where he sells tools to help you make better bets. I didn't ask you last night. Do you have bets today? I should have opened with that. Blue Jays money line. Got it. We'll do it. All right. Um, I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit. I didn't tell you about this because I wanted to surprise you. I need some I guess we can call it personal advice, I guess. So you are, in addition to the gambling thing, you're doing social media, and you're teaching some high school kids how to swing a bat, right? Which is awesome. If you've seen Zack Gray hit, then you'd immediately be like, I need lessons from that guy. We're talking to a triple crown winner here. So next year, it looks like I'm going to be coaching some high school baseball, which I'm very excited about. Where should I get my fungo from? I need some fungo advice. Okay, reach out to a company with like 2,000 followers and see if they'll just give me one. I can do that. That seems easy enough. Okay, that sounds like a great plan. I didn't even think about that. I was driving. That is great advice. I was at Dick's Sporting Goods last night. It's up there. I think that and keep your shoulder in. You're pulling off the baseball too much. It's probably those two things. And hit it in the air because I was a stubborn 18-year-old. It's like, yeah, that's right. 6'9", 60. Not fast. That's high school fast. That is not Henderson State baseball fast though. When you got dudes out there running like 6'3s and 6'4s. Jeez. I was talking to someone yet the other day about like how good non-division 1 college baseball players are. And I just ran them through all of Spencer Tack's measurements. And they were like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "Yeah. 6'5". He was sitting like 94 the last year that he was there. He was a stud. He was incredible. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. No one in Indianapolis knows what we're talking about right now. So I gotta pull us back on track here. Um, yeah, that's a perfect explanation of who Spencer Tack is. He was a monster. Oh my gosh. All right. Last thing for you here. We're talking obviously Colts over under today. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at their schedule. I've got them at like 7-10. Their over unders 7.5 games. Just kind of given what you know about the Colts this year, do you like their over or under? Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's a rough opening, but the second half of the schedule eases up quite a bit, with the exception of your Bengals. I don't want to be disrespectful. Yeah. Yeah, I had a guy named Zach Hicks on earlier who does a really good job covering the Colts, and he was like, "Look, the issue with Shane Steichen in Indianapolis is he never beats Jacksonville or Houston. He's like 2 out of the 3 years that he's been here. If he just splits those series, then like the Colts are in the playoffs, and he can't really find a way to do that. And honestly, I think Houston's going to be really good this year. We'll see about Jacksonville. Like it's Trevor Lawrence is like one great year, followed by like a slightly worse year, followed by a terrible year. That's kind of what his career's been so far. So I don't want to say that Jacksonville's going to be good quite yet. Go ahead. What? I do like that. I do like that. He also wears his hat forward, which is a good sign as well. Yeah, it'll be Daniel Jones. Coming off the the torn Achilles 9 months ago, he's pulling a Tatum. It looks like he's going to play Week 1, 9 months removed, which isn't nerve wracking at all. When you realize that Jason Tatum strained his other calf a few weeks later for overcompensating. You're not a Nikhil Westbrook Akine fan? He had 11 receptions for the Dolphins last year. Doesn't get you fired up. Hey, former first round pick, baby. Practice squad legend here in Indy. I know, man. He's been here in Indy for a while now, too. I think the hope, though, I think that they'll have Josh Downs play out wide this year. They'll have him play Z. They'll motion him a lot, play him kind of off the Josh Downs. Oh, we love him here, man. We love our above average players here in Indy. Um, I don't I don't think so. Just because, which then again, like we've never seen him play out wide, right? And that was kind of what made T.Y. Hilton so special was his ability that even at that size, he could split out. So, I mean, maybe I think Dion Burks, the seventh rounder that they took out of Oklahoma, I think that's a little more likely for him just because he's a better athlete than Josh Downs is. Look, man, brutal. They do. Okay, Zach, this is all that you need to know about the Indianapolis Colts and the way that the fans treat our players. Okay. The Colts have been without a major star for so long that, like, if you go to Buffalo, there's Josh Allen jerseys everywhere. If you go to Cincinnati, I'm assuming that there's a ton of like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase jerseys. You go to Kansas City, it's Mahomes jerseys, right? And so on. When you come to Indianapolis and you go to a Colts game, you see a lot of Quentin Nelson jerseys. I think we're the only team in the league that's repping our left guard's jersey at Colts games. And it's just because they haven't had like an elite skill player in so long. Yeah, but the issue with Taylor is like he's only look, I speaking badly of Jonathan Taylor's it can get you in some trouble around here, all right? Again, joined by Zack Gray. We're talking Colts. Um The issue with Jonathan Taylor is he's only had 2 healthy seasons. Every other year he's been so banged up, you just kind of forget about him. And like last year when he was healthy, he was awesome. That 2020 season when he was healthy, he was the best running back in football that year, won offensive player of the year. But like most years he's playing like 11 or 12 games and that's it. It does. It really is. I forget to like reset the interview. Um It's yeah, my boss is like, Jonathan, when Zach comes on, man, like you got to reset the interview. I'm like, which Zach? We have 5 different Zachs that come on the show, and he's like, you know which one I'm talking about. And I'm like, you're right, Mike, I do. So again, this is Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. Follow him on X at ZG. The Grapevine, especially when football season rolls around, he'll have college football and NFL bets for you every single week. Do you have a gambling addict Brendan Sorsby bet of the week for us this week? I didn't text you about that either. Just rolling with the Blue Jays. Blue Jays on the money line paired with third pitch of the game strike. That's right. Only Blue Jays on the money line. Zach, thanks for your time, man. See you, man. That is Zack Gray. Always a great time when he comes on the show every single Friday. Colts schedule, though, that is the main topic for today. We will continue to break down the Colts schedule coming up here on the show. I want to talk about the easiest stretch for the Colts when we come back. Like the first 3 months are an absolute nightmare. But those final like 5 games are a dream. I'll tell you why Indy's playoffs hopes aren't dead, even if they start the year underwater in 3 minutes. Yeah, my out cue always be like in 3 minutes or something like that. I'm just breaking everything this week. Gosh dang it, man. Here, let me hang with a nice little assist there. Thank you. Let's get me back on camera here. Cameras, microphones, the whole shebang. It's wonderful. All right. So to continue talking Indianapolis Colts here, schedule coming out last night. Looking at what their season is going to look like here. And I think when everyone saw this schedule, their initial reaction was, man, first month of the year is just brutal. Absolutely brutal. And with that being said, the final stretch of the year after the bye week, weeks 14 through 18, not really a problem. And so because of that, like, they don't have to have any sort of amazing stretch throughout the middle of the year. If they can just play 500 football, if they can just play Indianapolis Colts football, 500, because that's who they've been under Shane Steichen and under Ballard for the last 6 years. If they can just get to a point where they have 6 or 7 wins going into their final 4 games of the year, then they're going to have a real opportunity at making the playoffs this year. They're closing the year with the Titans, Bengals, Browns, and Jags. Okay? And that Jags game is at home. That's very important. All those games are winnable. It's just the getting to 7 wins before that stretch of the season. But that's only like 7-6. But that feels like a tall order when you look at the beginning of the season, when you look at what this Colts schedule looks like before that bye week. The first month of the season, Ravens, Chiefs, Texans, Commanders. Could potentially be 0-4. Then you're at Pittsburgh, Titans at home, at the Vikings, and at the Jaguars. There's a few winnable games in there. We'll see how Minnesota looks with Kyler Murray playing quarterback now instead of J.J. McCarthy. And then after that point, though, after that game on the road against the Jaguars in November, that game's November 1st, every game from there, with the exception of going on the road to Houston, feels very winnable. And even that Houston game, the Colts are going to have a chance because it's on Thursday night. And Thursday night football games are weird. You've got short rest. And, that really impacts certain teams. The Texans play a very physical brand of football. How healthy are they going to be at that point in the season? I think it's a very fair question to ask about how they're going to look at that point in terms of health. Okay, so 7-6. Going to be tough. Okay, and I will say, I think that right now in the moment, I wish that the Colts had taken their bye week, week 5. That way they weren't going from London to then being on the road against Pittsburgh. But this is where not taking the bye, I think, really matters. Because if they can get to 6-6 or 7-5 through those first 12 weeks, they're going to be fresh the final 5 games of the year with that week 13 bye. Now, I don't know if it's going to pay off. The wheels could fall off the wagon before the wagon even gets rolling. Like if the Colts started 0-5, I don't think people would be overly surprised by that. So it feels risky not taking the bye week at week 5, but we'll see. That bye week later in the year is going to be really important for the Colts if they're in fact positioned at around 500 when week 13 comes around. So that's 6-6 or 7-5. So by the time the Colts see the Bengals in week 16 or the Browns in week 17, like those teams will be more worn down because they didn't have a bye week, 3 weeks ago, right? Especially those two teams because they're playing in a division with the Steelers and the Ravens and that Browns defense. Like they're all just going to beat up on each other all year, right? So we'll see if that week 13 bye ends up working in the Colts' favor or if it works against them with an 0-5 start. And at that point in the year, like the Colts aren't just going to be playing winnable games. Like they're going to be playing against teams that have been through like a 15-round heavyweight fight. Meanwhile, the Colts got to sit out a round in week 13, right? So if they can just be somewhat fresh coming out of that week 13 bye, I think they have a great chance to close their season strong. But they just have to play 500 football up till that point, and that'll then give themselves a chance at a playoff berth in the final month of the season. So seems like we're in for another year where the Colts are in the hunt graphic. You know what I'm talking about. Like after week 12, they're doing the whole playoff picture thing. And they're like, here are all the teams not in the playoffs, but are still technically alive. The Colts will be over there on that side of the graphic, but I don't think we ever reach a point where we feel like the Colts are legitimately a playoff team. And I think it's going to be really tough for them to feel that way when they start the season off as roughly as I think that they're going to. So we'll see how it breaks. This is just a really tough schedule for them this year, which again, they were due for. The schedule the past couple of seasons has been significantly easier. So we'll see how it all unravels for the Colts. But again, I feel like we're looking at a 7-10-ish team this year for the Indianapolis Colts, just because, again, this schedule is so tough, right? Like Daniel Jones is going to be back. Seems like he's going to play week 1. But the NFL did him zero favors with his welcoming committee. Would have been really nice to like open with the Dolphins. I know Fernando Mendoza in Las Vegas has got to be excited about that. We're going to break down a season opening gauntlet that features not 1, not 2, but 3 Super Bowl contenders and a flight across the Atlantic. Kind of feels like the Colts and Daniel Jones are being set up to fail before the season really even gets going. We'll break down the schedule in its entirety in 4 minutes.
On Indy Sports Ticket 1438. It's the new and always the free Indy Sports Ticket.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching the show on X__Jonathan Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 a.m. A lot of stuff going on today. Mainly, the Indianapolis Colts schedule has been released, and the Colts' easy run of schedules is over. I mean, this schedule this year is it's absolutely brutal. Okay, they're opening the season with 3 teams that expect to compete for the Super Bowl. Daniel Jones is probably going to play week 1. That just sounds like a terrible idea. Again, I just want to point out, Jason Tatum, 9 months removed from his surgery with the Achilles, he got hurt a few weeks later. I mean, it's an area of concern, I think, to say the least. But we'll see if he's ready to go or not. And again, you can call in 317-228-1430 if you have a record prediction you would like to share on the show. So it's a tough opening. We'll see if Daniel Jones is really ready to go in those games or not. And then after those 3 tough games against potential Super Bowl contenders, the Colts get on a plane to London, where they have to play the Commanders, who, the last time Jaden Daniels was healthy, they played for the NFC Championship game. So, not saying that the Commanders are going to be that good again this year. It's more of just alluding to how much better they are when Jaden Daniels plays. Like, they're not going to go 5-12 this year like they did last year, as long as Jaden Daniels stays healthy. So, that's not an easy game either. An 0-4 start is definitely on the table for the Colts this year. And that London trip, it's going to be brutal. Like, most teams treat the London trip kind of like a vacation. It's like, they go out there, they're walking through the streets, they're looking at Big Ben, they're having a good time while also getting ready for their game. But for the Colts, it's different, because those teams that go to London usually then go back home, and then they have a bye week the following week. That's not what's happening with the Colts. They're flying to London, playing a game, coming back, flying to Pittsburgh, and then playing them in week 5 on the road. Like, they're not just going to be fighting the Steelers that week. They're going to be fighting jet lag as well. It's going to be like trying to run a marathon the day after a 10-hour flight, sitting in coach with a screaming baby behind you, and being sandwiched in the middle between 2 overweight guys. On the bright side, hopefully Daniel Jones will have his sea legs back by then. So hey, maybe that'll count for something. Okay, in weeks 5 through 8, the opponents do take a step down in competition, but they're still good. Like, they've got the Steelers on the road, they've got the Titans at home, they've got the Vikings on the road, and then they have Jacksonville on the road. Going from London to Pittsburgh is going to be brutal, no matter who's playing quarterback for Pittsburgh. Could be Aaron Rodgers, could be Will Howard, could be Drew Aller, could be Mason Rudolph. We'll see what ends up happening there. But the travel is going to make that game tough. Winning in Minnesota is not an easy thing to do. Okay, it's a Minnesota team that went 9-8 last year with J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz playing quarterback. This year, it's going to be Kyler Murray, so they're going to be better. Okay, and then obviously when the Colts go on the road to Jacksonville, they never win there. So we'll see how that goes. The amount of road games in that stretch is what makes it a tougher stretch. Okay, like weeks 5 through 8, that is the suitcase stretch. Three out of the 4 games are on the road, including the House of Horrors in Jacksonville. If they come out of that stretch going 2-2, then I think that they'll have to be like, all right, we would have liked to have gone 3-1, obviously, but 2-2 with all these miles that we're putting on our private jet over here is kind of nice. And then we get to weeks 9 through 12, which is the month where it seems like the Colts are going to have a chance to make up some ground. The Cowboys, Dolphins, and Giants all come to town. They need all 3 of those games. I think the Cowboys and Dolphins games are very winnable. The Giants game, tough matchup, but winnable, right? The Giants are going to be well coached, bringing in John Harbaugh, replacing Brian Dable. I think it's going to be tough to run the football against that front 7. During that stretch of games, they got to go on the road to Houston as well, where they'll probably lose to the Houston Texans for the second time on the season. Okay, but this is the Colts' home-cooked meal stretch after a month of fast food. Three home games in 4 weeks. That Giants game, not a gimme, but a winnable game, as physical as that game's going to be. And then the Colts get their bye week. Hallelujah. The 1 week this year where we don't have to watch the Colts play football. And the reason why they have a week 13 bye week is because they opted not to have their bye week after the trip to London. I think that if they had known that after the London trip, 3 of their next 4 games would be on the road, I think that they would have taken it. But, obviously they probably didn't know that at the time. So moving the bye week to week 13, though, could be a choice that pays off if they're fresh down the stretch. There are a lot of winnable games in those final 5 weeks. They're going to close the season with the Eagles, Titans, Bengals, Browns, and Jaguars. I don't think the Eagles are going to be as good this year. I think that game's winnable. Titans and Browns are probably going to go under 500 again. The Bengals are going to struggle to protect Joe Burrow once again this year, so maybe the Colts catch a break and he's sidelined in that game. Maybe that game against the Jaguars is for a playoff spot. We'll see. But what I do know is the back half of that schedule, much easier compared to the front half, and hopefully they can finish the year on a strong note. At a minimum, maybe they start 2027 2-0 to honor Jim Irsay. But when you work through their entire schedule by game, this is what I came out with. I think this is what every fan does when the schedule comes out. So here we go. Every game for the Colts this year, wins and losses. So week 1 against the Ravens at home, loss. Lamar Jackson is a stud. The amount of injury luck that they had last year, or I guess injury unluck that they had last year is brutal. They've been talented defensively for the past couple of years. They've just really struggled to stay healthy. I don't think Daniel Jones plays in this game. He might. If he does, I don't think he's going to be very good. And whoever plays quarterback for the Colts week 1, I think is really going to struggle against that Ravens defense. And as much as I like the Colts defense this year, I don't expect them to go toe-to-toe with that Baltimore defense and give the Baltimore offense any trouble, really, in week 1. Week 2, they go on the road to Arrowhead for Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs are going to be much better this year. I think both of their first-round picks are going to be impactful pretty much immediately. They took a corner and a pass rusher at defensive tackle. Those are 2 things that they really needed on the defensive side of the football. I think we're going to see the identity of the offense change quite a bit with Kenneth Walker being there. I think there's going to be a stronger commitment to running the football. That's going to help protect Mahomes, who's going to be coming off of a torn ACL. Mahomes is going to be better because of that, and I think the Colts get embarrassed in week 2. And then week 3, they're back at home playing against the Houston Texans. I think that's another loss. If the Texans fixed their offensive line, then they're going to be good enough to win the Super Bowl, barring any injuries. I love that they brought in David Montgomery. I love that they invested heavily in their offensive line in both the draft and free agency. I know people are down on C.J. Stroud, but the offensive line he played behind last year was terrible. He's going to be better this year if their offensive line is just average. They drafted an offensive guard in the first round. They brought in Braden Smith. So I do think that their offensive line is going to be better. They might have the best defense in football this year. I think that's a real possibility, and I like them to win the AFC South. Week 4, that is the London game against the Commanders. Games played outside of the country are weird. Teams lay eggs overseas all the time. The Colts are going to be 0-3 at this point, probably. And they're going to be playing with their backs against the wall. Okay, now I'm intrigued to see what the health in this game looks like because week 3, the Colts play the Texans, very physical team. Week 3, the Commanders play the Seahawks, very physical team. The Seahawks and Texans are 2 teams who can beat you twice because of their physicality. Okay, so when that's the question of like who's going to be healthier, give me the better quarterback. I think Jaden Daniels in Washington beat the Colts in London, and the Colts start 0-4. And then they win their first game of the year, week 5. I think this is a prototypical Vegas trap game. Everyone is going to look at the Colts, see that they're 0-4, going on the road, coming off of a trip from London, while the Steelers will have extended rest coming off of a Thursday night football game. There is a game, or this is a game where Vegas makes a fortune because everyone is going to bet Pittsburgh because of the rest factor. And they're going to see that 0-4 by the Colts name and be like, yeah, they're bad. Everyone's going to take Pittsburgh. Right now, their starting quarterback is either going to be Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, or Drew Aller. Maybe Aaron Rodgers shows up, but I'm not counting on it. I think the Colts grabbed their first win in Week 5, and they kind of beat the odds there against a bad young quarterback for Pittsburgh. Week 6, they have the Titans. I think they win that one. That game's at home. While there is a path for the Titans to be good this year, I don't think that it really happens. I don't think that they're going to have, the number 4 overall pick in the NFL draft again, but they're still going to be like a 7-10 or 6-11 football team. They'll be better, but not good enough to go on the road and beat a divisional foe that, again, has their back against the wall. Week 7, they're at the Vikings. That's another loss for the Colts. This is just a bad matchup. Kyler Murray's going to be comfortable in the Minnesota offense by Week 7. The idea of Daniel Jones trying to run away from a Brian Flores blitzing defense 10 months after Achilles surgery sounds like a painful thing to watch. Minnesota's also coming off of a bye, so Brian Flores is going to have a full extra week to cook up something to get after Daniel Jones. Don't love that for the Colts. Week 8, they are at Jacksonville. I think that's a loss because the Colts never win in Jacksonville. And I don't think that this team or roster is really going to be good enough to change that. Week 9, Cowboys. I think that's a win. I'm not a believer in the Dallas Cowboys really at all this year. I think their pass rush is going to be pretty hit and miss, pretty inconsistent. They couldn't run the football last year. I don't think they're going to be able to run the football this year. Their over-under in Vegas is only 9.5. And look, it's the Cowboys, so everyone's going to blow smoke up their butts. But I'm telling you, I don't think that this Cowboys team is going to be good enough to win their division. Maybe they go 10-7 and grab a wild card, but I don't think this is some like loaded roster, and the Colts should be shaking in their boots at the idea of playing Dallas at home. I think that the Colts win that game in Week 9. Week 10, the Colts host the Dolphins. That's a win. The Dolphins are going to be the worst team in the NFL this year. Week 11, Colts go on the road to play Houston. This is another loss. I think that Texans defense is going to be mauling offenses by that point in the year. It's happened in the last 3 years. Okay, around Week 10, DeMeco Ryans gets his defense rolling, and they go to another level. The Colts are not winning that game on the road. If they're going to beat Houston this year, it's gonna happen in Week 3 when they're at home. Week 12 against the Giants at home, another loss. John Harbaugh, I think, is going to be great in New York. I think he's going to do his thing with Jackson Darts. I thought that John Harbaugh did a really good job of explaining to Lamar Jackson that if you're going to win games in the NFL, you have to do it from the pocket at some point. I think Jackson Dart will just make better decisions in terms of when to slide in those things. I really like the Giants' defense this year. That front seven, I think, is going to make the Colts offense one-dimensional in that game, and I think Daniel Jones is going to fail to win that revenge game. Week 13, we get a bye week. Hallelujah. We don't have to watch the Colts that week. Week 14, this is the weird win of the year. There's always a couple of games where the lesser team wins, and everyone is left confused as to how that happened. That is what this game is. I'm also not as high on the Eagles this year. They're an older team. They're about to trade A.J. Brown. They're not going to be as dynamic offensively because of that. The offensive line regressed a little bit last year. I don't think that their offensive line is going to be as good this year, just again because of that age factor. Jalen Hurts isn't good enough to just carry teams to wins. And I think that they underachieved this year. And I think that they lose to the Colts in Week 14, which will start the year after year tradition of Eagle fans calling for Nick Sirianni to be fired. Week 15, the Colts go on the road to Tennessee to play the Titans. By Week 15, everyone's incredibly banged up. And I think the Colts win that game on the road. I don't think that the Titans are going to have the depth to deal with the injuries that are bound to happen to them this year. Week 16, when the Colts play the Bengals, I have it down as a loss. I almost put it down as a win for the Colts. I think they match up well with the Bengals. They have the corners required to deal with the Bengals receivers. The Bengals offensive line is going to be bad again. I think this is a winnable game for the Colts, but if we're looking at this like both teams are healthy, I don't know how you pick Daniel Jones over Joe Burrow really ever. With that being said, both of them are probably going to be hurt at this point in the year. That is what their track records say. So we'll see what Week 16 looks like. But assuming Joe Burrow and Daniel Jones play, I don't know how you don't take the Bengals. Week 17, the Colts go on the road to Cleveland, where they're going to play the Browns. That Browns defense is going to eat the Colts offense alive, right? They hired Todd Monken, who did a great job as the offensive coordinator in Baltimore before he landed this job. He's going to elevate the offense no matter who's at quarterback, and that defense is absolutely nasty. So I think the Colts lose that Week 17 game on the road against Cleveland. And then to close the season, they have the Jaguars at home. I think the Colts will win that game because it would be the most Jacksonville thing ever to lose a game to the Colts. That means absolutely nothing to the Colts because by that point, they will have been eliminated from playoff contention. And it'll probably mean something to the Jaguars in terms of seeding or sneaking into the playoffs as a wild card. So that Colts over-under is set at 7.5. I like the under for the Colts with them going 7-10 on the year. I'll look at the schedule again right before the season starts because someone's going to get hurt during training camp. That'll impact the Colts or one of the teams on their schedule. We'll see, is Daniel Jones going to play the first couple weeks of the season? We'll probably find out more about that as the season gets a little bit closer. So right now, I have them at 7-10, and I am fully anticipating being ready to watch the Pacers in October because the Colts have disappointed us. Hour number 3 coming up next. We're going to keep talking Colts, 317-228-1430. If you want to call in or text your prediction for what the Colts schedule is going to be. I got some texts from the text line that I'll read when we come back in about 5 minutes. I need the full 5. I got to poop. I said that with a hot mic. That's funny.
5-star center, Isaiah Hill from Pike High School. It is gigantic. It is a really big deal that we get Isaiah Hill, or they get Isaiah Hill. In context, the rating for Isaiah Hill is a 9.94 out of 10. The last highest rating that Purdue's ever had is Caleb Swanigan with a 9.91 out of 10. Huge get for Purdue. If he can live up to the hype, if he can live up to possibly being a candidate for Mr. Basketball this year, I think there's a big chance that Purdue can get their championship.
What'd you say?
I was talking about Isaiah Hill getting to Purdue.
Oh, is that the 5-star center or whatever
Yeah,
from?
Yeah.
We'll see. Who's on the line?
C. Fitch is on the line.
C. Fitch! Tell me how good the Colts are going to be this year, C. Fitch. Whenever we get you on the air. Maybe here in a second. There it is. How good are the Colts going to be this year, C. Fitch? I've got them going 7-10. Come on now. What do you think they're going to go? That is probably going to happen. Where are the wins at? Who am I giving the Colts wins to that you're not? The Cowboys are not going to be that good this year. They're over-under set at 9.5 because they're the Cowboys. If they were the Jags or Houston, it'd be at like 7.5 or 8.5. The George Pickens year. I think the Colts defense that's going to be the best part of the Colts this year, especially at corner. And here's the thing: like George Pickens was awesome last year. He's not doing that again. His state of mind, I think, is a little too volatile for him to have back-to-back amazing seasons. No, he's pouting because he didn't get that contract this year, and they had to franchise tag him. He won't be as good as he was last year. Because part of why he was so good last year is because CeeDee Lamb got hurt. And even if you don't like the Colts defense this year, I mean, you have to like Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward, do you not? I think Sauce Gardner will. He's played every game of every season except for last year. He played 12 out of the 17. The Charvarius Ward point is fair, though. I will agree on that. Coming off the bye week, I like their chances a little bit more. Again, Phillies, I don't think people realize how old their roster is. I think that's kind of why I don't like them. It's kind of like my 49ers point a couple of years ago. Older rosters just don't stay as healthy. And so I think by week 13, you're looking at an Eagles offense that's like without Lane Johnson, and Saquon Barkley is getting up there in age. Like, is he going to be there? No A.J. Brown, which means they're relying on, Dontavian Wicks and guys like that. So he is, but like you need another guy. Like I think part of why Devontae Smith is as good as he's been is because he's playing opposite of a guy in A.J. Brown who's the best receiver on that roster as of right now. Five wins. So those are coming against the Dolphins. You haven't beaten the Titans twice. Who are the other two? Browns. That's about it. Okay. Week 6 is going to be their first win. That's at home against the Titans. Nice little 1-5 start. Don't let the Colts get hot after that. Man, that's so sad. Like, I think I know, man. You love you love yourself some Daniel Jones. Your boy's just not going to be as good this year, or what? Yeah. Well, no Mike Tomlin. That matters. It's Mike McCarthy instead. Big downgrade in terms of the mics. And it may not be Aaron Rodgers. It may be Mason Rudolph or Will Howard or Drew Aller, who they said they're having to completely reprogram. So the Steelers thing, depending on who's playing quarterback, I do think that's winnable, even though all the travel is going to be really tough. Let's do it. Colts winning 8 games. I don't know if there was a quote earlier in the offseason from Carly Ursay where she basically made a point that, like, just because you fire your general manager doesn't mean you have to fire your head coach, which to me, that's her saying, I really like Shane Steichen for one reason or another. So I'd be surprised if they fired him in the middle of the year. I think he is the fall guy this year. He's gotta be. Gotta be. Yeah, and I will say, you made the point of them not being mentally tough in recent history. I know I talked earlier in the week on, like, there's like a clear shift in terms of like who the core guys are. Does that give you any sort of hope that maybe they're a little bit tougher this year? Yeah, I talked about that on Wednesday because because like you said, like Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore, Michael Pittman, all those guys, like you said, never won anything, made the playoffs once in 2020 with Philip Rivers. That's really it. And so now it looks like there's like this shift to like Sauce Gardner and Alec Pierce and Leatu Latu and Tyler Warren and CJ Allen and Bernard Ryman. Like, do you like that group of guys more than the former guys that the Colts were relying on? Yeah, so I mean, maybe that means something in terms of them bouncing back after a potential like 1-5 start, but we'll see. I just don't know if the talent's there. That's really the ultimate issue. Yeah. Did you say tight ends in coverage? Well, that's what bringing in CJ Allen and then they signed what's his name? They signed a linebacker that played for the Cardinals last year. Akeem Davis Gaither. I mean, Davis Gaither, he's been around, I think 6 or 7 years now. CJ Allen, that's obviously the rookie, but we'll see. The pass rush stuff is obviously an issue. I do think that they're going to bring in like a Joey Bosa or Jadeveon Clowney. That doesn't mean a ton, but I do think that that'll make us feel at least a little bit better. Probably. Thanks for the call, C. Fitch. You too, man. See ya. Good old C. Fitch, 317-228-1430. That is the number if you want to call in with your Indianapolis Colts prediction. We got a text earlier. Sorry, I don't have a name here, but they said the Colts are like any non-elite / non-bottom feeder NFL team in the league. 6 to 10 wins, depending on injuries. If Trevor Lawrence is injured, they should make the playoffs. We have to see how the top 2 selections pan out. If both produce, the Colts are closer to 10 wins than 6. Yeah, I think that's a really fair point, whoever sent in that text, because the Colts are, look, if they make the playoffs, they'll go 10-7, and they'll be the 7th seed, and they'll go on the road to Buffalo, Kansas City, or Baltimore in the first round of the playoffs, and they'll lose. Okay, it's either that or they're going to go, or they'll win somewhere between 6 and 9 games, and really that may be what it comes down to. I know I've talked about this on the show a lot. So much of the NFL is really just about injury luck. If the Ravens don't have Lamar Jackson and their entire defense, with the exception of Kyle Hamilton, get hurt last year, then the Ravens probably make the playoffs. When you look at the Eagles a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl, they had 21 of their 22 Week 1 starters start the wild card round of the playoffs. It's about health. Because, look, as much as I don't like this Colts roster, all of these guys on their team, they're all starters for one reason or another. So if the Colts stay healthy, then, obviously they're going to have an excellent chance to win a lot of games later in the year. Because, obviously, to start the year, these teams are going to be decently healthy. So I'm intrigued. We'll see how things go and see how things look going forward. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just at a point where I'm just not excited for this Colts season. And I haven't met anyone that is. If you're excited to watch the Indianapolis Colts try to play football this year, 317-228-1430. That's the phone number if you want to call or text that number. I'll talk to Destin Adams about that as well. He said to join the show coming up here at 2:20. I don't know. I want to be excited. I want to find some reason that no one else can think of as to why the Indianapolis Colts are going to be good this year, or why they could just maybe make the playoffs. But I don't know what that thing is. Is it because they have Jonathan Taylor and everybody else doesn't? Probably not. Daniel Jones isn't a franchise elevator. If he was, then he'd still be in New York. He wouldn't be here. Okay, this defense, while I do think that it's going to be better, C. Fitch made an excellent point. The pass rush isn't going to be very good. And I talked about this earlier in the week. When you look at the 3 most important things on a football team, quarterback, head coach, and pass rush, you don't feel great about the Colts at any of the spots, right? You got, Daniel Jones, who was bad in 5 out of 9 games last year that he started and finished. You've got Shane Steichen, who, even though I like him, he's 25-26 as a head coach in the NFL. I just can't really defend that either. And then this pass rush, I like Leatu Latu. Again, he doubled his sack total from his first year to his second year in the league. So I think that, he's going to be a little bit better this year in that regard. Maybe he breaks 10 sacks. We'll see. But outside of that, JT Tuimoloau was a healthy scratch a lot of last year. Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner are only getting older, even though I do like Colby Wooden, the guy that the Colts traded for when they sent Zaire Franklin to Green Bay. I like Adetomi Adebawore, but the issue with him, he can only rush the passer. He can't really do anything else, and you obviously need for your defensive tackles to be able to stuff the run as well. Arden Key is going to get a decent number of snaps this year at edge rusher. His career high in sacks is 6. George Gumbs Jr. is a 5th-round pick that I don't think is going to play much this year. Caden Curry, kid from Center Grove, nice motor, plays really hard. Don't think he's a guy who's going to like show up and impact the Colts immediately. So they just don't have the roster. That's really what this is. You know, people are going to find ways to probably, you know, shift the blame onto like Shane Steichen and point out all of his coaching mistakes and all these things. But when you're coaching a team that's going to have an inferior roster in a lot of these games, like you have to take more risks in order to win. Like Baltimore, Kansas City, Houston, I'm going to put Washington in there, Minnesota, Jacksonville, New York, Philly. Those 8 teams definitely have a better roster than the Colts do. I would maybe throw Cleveland in there just because of how much I like their defense. I would maybe throw Dallas in there just because offensively I think that they're going to look better than the Colts do. So when you have a lesser roster and potentially like 12 of your football games this year, when you factor in your divisional opponents, it's really hard to win football games when that is the case. And we'll have Destin Adams on coming up here at 2:20 to talk about that a little bit further. We'll continue to break down this Colts schedule with Destin Adams in about 3 minutes.
The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, you can watch the show on X, __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indie Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. I'm now joined by Destin Adams. Does a great job covering the Colts. Follow him on X at the Destin Adams. Dude, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, doing good. The schedule release is a little bit less hectic this year, just because this time last year, the day after, the only thing everyone's talking about is the fact that the Colts deleted their schedule online. So we don't have that issue this year.
So we've had issues with our StreamYard today. I can barely hear you. It's like coming through the wrong speaker. It's not coming in through my headphones. So I'm gonna send your number to my producer and I'm gonna have him call you and we can just do this over the phone, okay? Sorry about that, man. I broke a microphone on like Wednesday and everything has been messed up since then. So give me 1 sec. I'm going to have him call you real quick, okay? Cool. All right, we'll have Destin Adams joining us here in a quick second. I just got to get his contacts here over to Peyton. I should have done this earlier in case it happened. I got to think on my feet better. It's all good. It's all right. All right. So we'll have Destin Adams joining us here in a moment. And we will continue to break down this Indianapolis Colts schedule. We'll figure out where he's at on, the Colts going into the season. What does he like about the schedule? What does he not like about the schedule? What is favorable about the schedule? What is not favorable about the schedule? And so on. So, all the normal stuff that we've been covering today as we've been breaking down this Indianapolis Colts schedule. Peyton dialing him up right now. And I would love it if he could give me a reason to be hopeful for the Colts. I may ask him for that. Like, this has been all doom and gloom today. And, sometimes that's the way that it goes, especially when you're looking at a Colts team who, the people in Vegas are very smart. There's a reason why their over-under is set at 7.5. And currently I've got them going under. I've got them at 7 wins on the year. Again, this Colts team, man, roster's just not good enough. And there's only so many ways that you can really come up with a way to say that. Like, when you look at them, there is a lack of a presence on the edge in terms of the ability to get after the passer. There is a lack of play at quarterback. I get it. Daniel Jones was good for like a month last year.
We got him.
We got him. Destin, what's going on, man? Can you hear me? I can hear you. This is great. All right. Colts schedule came out last night. What was your initial reaction to it? Yeah, it's not. I mean, look, 0-4 is definitely on the table. I don't like that at all. What do you make of the Colts' decision to not have their bye week after their trip to London? Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, and I think I don't want to call it a gamble, but it's a decision that I think could certainly pay off having the late bye, because I think if they go into that bye at 6-6, which feels really hopeful, like those final 5 games, I think that there's a chance for them to go 4-1 down the stretch and maybe sneak into the playoffs as like a 7 seed. What does their record need to be going into that bye for you to feel like there's a chance at some playoff football here in Indy? Yeah. Yeah. It is, especially. I don't know if you saw the graphic. Again, joined by Destin Adams. Follow him on X at the Destin Adams. He does a great job covering the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if you saw this or not, but the NFL put out a graphic where it was like ranking the easiest schedules based on opponent win percentage from last year. And again, rosters change a lot from year to year. Also, like I don't think I'm going out on a limb saying that the Ravens, Chiefs, Commanders, and Vikings are all going to be better this year because the Ravens were incredibly beat up last year. I don't think that we're going to have two bad seasons of Mahomes and Andy Reid. For Washington, Jaden Daniels didn't play at all. And for Minnesota, JJ McCarthy wasn't very good. I think Kyler Murray's better than him. I don't think it matters what you think of Kyler. I think a lot of people like him more than JJ McCarthy. Like that's a quarter of the Colts schedule. That's going to be really tough right there, you know? Yeah, and it's a really interesting year to ask that question because there is a real shift in terms of the players that they're going to rely on. Like, there's no more Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore's gone, Quiddy Pay's in Vegas, Michael Pittman's in Pittsburgh, Braden Smith is playing in Houston, and this year seems like the Colts are going to be relying on guys like Sauce Gardner, Alec Pierce, Leatu Latu, Tyler Warren, C.J. Allen, Bernard Ryman, right, and so on. So I don't know. Do you think that core of players is better than a lot of the guys that we've seen the Colts kind of move off of as they've gotten older this previous offseason? That's interesting. I feel better about the defense. Just because that part of that could just be like I really like Lou Anarumo. I think the secondary is gonna be awesome. Like I'm really excited about Halsey. Obviously, like Sauce Gardner and Tavarius Ward need no introduction. I thought Cam Bynum was really good last year. I really like CJ Allen, and you mentioned how we're gonna learn a lot about these guys early in the year. We're gonna learn if CJ Allen can tackle between Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker, and David Montgomery. We're gonna find out really quickly in those first 3 weeks. The question though, and I'm gonna assume here, so if I'm wrong, please tell me. I'm assuming you don't like the defense as much as the offense because of the question marks with the pass rush. That's a very fair take. Again, joined by Destin Adams. Does a great job covering the Colts. Follow him on X at the Destin Adams. I had Zach Hicks on a couple hours ago, and he made a really interesting point about Shane Steichen. He said that the Colts have missed the playoffs 2 out of the 3 years with Shane Steichen because of his inability to beat Houston and Jacksonville. And looking back on it, he's exactly right. How do you think the Colts stack up against the rest of this division? Man, I really like Houston this year. I think Houston's going to be really good. I know people are down on Stroud just because he had a rough year last year, but I think a lot of that had to do with the offensive line. They also had like every receiver get hurt. So they draft a center in round 1 with Keelan Rutledge out of Tech. As you mentioned earlier, they bring in Braden Smith. I feel like if their offensive line is just average, they'll be even better offensively than they were last year. I like that they brought in David Montgomery. I also thought that they asked Stroud to do a lot last year because Joe Mixon got hurt. I think that'll be a little different this year if Montgomery can stay durable. And their defense is just, I mean, good luck scoring points against them, So I like Houston to, Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, he better. That extension, it could be rather lucrative if he plays well this year. Again, joined by yeah, again joined by Destin Adams. Follow him on X at the Destin Adams. He does a great job covering the Colts. I've got him going 7-10. When I went through the schedule last night, do you have a record prediction for the Colts this year? Yeah, no, you're good. I mean, you kind of have to ask the question, right? And that's the question, right? It's when does Daniel Jones is probably going to start week 1. But the question is like when does Daniel Jones look yeah, but like when does which does not excite me. Like I know that the sports are different, but Jason Tatum came back after 9 months and a few weeks later strained his other calf because he was like overcompensating, which makes me nervous about Daniel Jones. But the question is like he's probably going to start week 1, but like when does he look like himself? Like if he looks like himself, week 3 at home against Houston, then I think 10 wins is more possible. But if it's not till like week 5, then it just makes it tougher. That's why this is such a tough question this year. It's like when is Daniel Jones going to look like himself? Yeah, yeah. It could be. We'll see how it goes. If I'm gonna give you a number. So I was looking over Daniel Jones's Pro Football Reference page there when you were talking. If I had to put an average on it without doing the math, it seems like he misses about 4 games a year. If we get 4 games of Riley Leonard, how do you feel about the team? That's tough. Yeah. Fair enough. I wouldn't feel very good about it either. I don't feel good about the Colts season if Daniel Jones plays all 17. So I just we've talked about this a lot. And last thing for you, Destin, and I'll let you go. It just feels I feel like whenever I talk about the Colts, there's just so much doom and gloom. I've posed the question to my listeners several times, like what about this Colts season excites you? And no one can give me like a good answer. So I'll ask you because, like you said, like this is a team that you think might be able to get to 10 wins if things break their way. What is it about this season that you're like looking forward to with the Colts? Yeah. That is a very optimistic way to look at it. I appreciate it. Okay, I lied. Last thing for real here. You mentioned there at the start, like you can come in with this hope of like if things aren't better this year, then we see some changes. Carly or say Gordon, she had a quote earlier in the offseason where she was basically saying that just because you fire the GM, I don't think that necessarily means you have to fire the head coach. I think that if they let Ballard go, that to me, that quote tells me that she likes Shane Steichen. I think that they would give him a slightly longer leash and let Ballard go. If they were to fire Ballard, do you think that they'd move off Steichen as well? Yep. Okay, we'll see. Destin, thanks for taking almost 30 minutes with us. That was not the plan, but I really appreciate you taking the time, man. All right, man. I will talk to you later. That is Destin Adams. Again, follow him on X at the Destin Adams. He does a great job covering the Indianapolis Colts. We will wrap up the show with more schedule talk, and I can't help myself. I've stayed off of it all show. I'm going to talk a little bit of NBA playoffs tonight because we could have 2 Game 7s on Sunday, depending on how tonight goes. So Colts schedule wrap up, and we'll talk a little bit about the NBA playoff games this weekend in 4 minutes. Send that email before I forget. These sports tickets. getting ready for the weekend. I'm watching hoops, and I'm going to keep looking at this Indianapolis Colts schedule. I'm looking at 7-10 on the year. That's just, I couldn't quite get to 8 or 9 wins. I know that is usually where I know that's where the Colts usually land, but the schedule is just much tougher than it has been in years past. So give me the Colts to finish the year at 7-10. Give me the under. Vegas setting their over-under line at about 7.5 wins on the season. This weekend, we've got basketball. It's tonight. I'm yet to break the news to my wife that we will be staying in this evening so that I can watch game 6s. And first game should be at 7. Hallelujah. Amazon Prime has the games and not NBC, because NBC would do that stupid thing where they overlap them. So thankfully that's not going to happen. So starting on Friday or tonight, 7 o'clock, we got Pistons at Cavaliers. Cavaliers are a 4.5-point favorite in that game. I'm going to take Detroit to go on the road and beat them. I just can't imagine a world where James Harden plays 3 consecutive good playoff games. I just don't think that's a normal possibility. So we'll see how they look there in that game. The question for Detroit, they have to find a second player to run their offense through. It's a lot of Cade Cunningham, and people are ripping on Cade because he's turning the basketball over and all those things. It's like, look, when you're the only guy on your team, it's like Josh Hoover at TCU last year, new quarterback for the Indiana Hoosiers. Last year he threw a lot of interceptions because the entire offense was on his plate. He did everything for them. Same thing in Detroit. There is no pressure release valve for Cade Cunningham to get to. Whereas, like, with the Pacers, if you double team Tyrese Halliburton or Siakam, then they can go to Andrew Nembhard or Aaron Nesmith or TJ McConnell or someone else to run the offense and control the possession. With Detroit, as soon as Cade Cunningham gives the ball up, it's like panic ensues and no one knows what they're doing from there. So if Cleveland wins, it'll be because Detroit doesn't have a guy step up in that department. I still think that the Pistons win this series in 7. I think we get a big game from Cade tonight because he's a guy who tends to rise to the occasion. And then we got the late game tonight. San Antonio going on the road to Minnesota. I think the Spurs clean it up here on the road. Julius Randle just hasn't been good enough in the series. He played really well in game 1. It's why Minnesota was able to go in there and beat San Antonio on the road. And since that game, he's done absolutely nothing. A lot of turnovers, a lot of missed shots. He's shooting like 33% from the floor in games 2 through 5. So he's got to be better. Anthony Edwards is still, he's clearly not himself. You can just tell he's a little gimpy, not as explosive when he's going to the rim. He looks a lot like Kyrie Irving did in the 2022 postseason run with the Mavs, where he's very clearly picking his spots. And I think that's because he's just not fully healthy. With that being said, the one thing about San Antonio that you have to ask questions about is their shooting. This is not a team that shoots the ball great outside of Devin Vassell and Champagny, and they're combining to shoot like 33% from 3 in the series. They're a combined 21 of 63. So they're not shooting it very well right now either. And shooting variance is always something that you have to be wary of in basketball. Maybe the Spurs continue to shoot the ball horribly in games 6 and 7, and the Wolves end up finding a way to pull it out. I don't think that's going to happen again. I like the Spurs tonight, and I like the Pistons. Rare playoff night where I like both road teams. That's probably not a good call on my part, but we will see what happens. Dan Dakich joins the show Monday at noon, so make sure you were logged in and ready to go, ready to listen to the great Dan Dakich. We'll keep talking Colts schedule and record predictions. Again, that is Monday at noon, and we will talk to you then. See ya. Have a nice weekend.